Rogan is still, well, you saw the title of this video. So, and I know, I'm sorry I'm making another short video about him like this, but he just keeps saying things that are remarkably stupid. You see, Joe is following and getting his information about vaccines from anti-vaxxers like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Robert Malone or John Campbell. He just listens to what they say, doesn't actually read any sources himself, and then spews his opinion to his tens of millions of listeners. And now he's running his show like it's 2005, and the idea that vaccines cause autism is all the rage again.
But this is the crazy one. Prenatal exposure to COVID-19 mRNA vaccine induces autism-like behaviors in male neonatal rats.
So in that clip, he's just talking about this paper, which I'm sure he just read the title of and listened to what some of the weirdos sharing it said. And he didn't actually read it. So what this paper did is it took a small number of rats and gave one group a placebo and one group a COVID mRNA vaccine. And mind you, this dose of COVID mRNA vaccine is equivalent to a human getting 360 vaccine doses at once. So how is that going to tell us anything about how this works in humans? So after they give rats this relatively huge dose of COVID vaccine, they subject the offspring of these rats to these behavioral tests that are supposed to give them an insight into whether or not the rats are exhibiting autistic behavior. Look, mice and rats can be really good models of human biology, but it takes a lot of work to establish that they are a good model for whatever you're studying. Which is why so many times the news will report on a particular study that is done in mice or rats, and scientists will have to scream from the rooftops, "You are not a mouse or a rat." These results are in mice and rats. They don't necessarily apply to you. So I didn't know much about animal models of autism, but there is no rat model of autism in this paper. Now, I can't speak to the validity of this, but all I can say is that there are some that are said to be able to be used as a model of autism. These are rats that have genes specifically knocked out of them. But this paper doesn't use any of them. They just use adult Wistar rats. And as far as I can tell in the literature, there is no data saying that these are a valid model for autism. So the setup is wrong, the model is wrong, and the results are meaningless. Beyond the behavioral test, they just test for specific immune molecules, but the immune molecule profile of rats versus humans is very different. Basically, rats tolerate immune insults very differently than humans, and thus the immune molecule profile you'll get out of an immune response can't really be translated to humans, at least not without a whole bunch of study for whatever topic you're studying. But despite all of these limitations and all of these nonsense methods, Joe Rogan says to his tens of millions of followers that pregnant women shouldn't get vaccinated because autism.
And how many women did they tell to get vaccinated while they were pregnant? How many women? They didn't have data on whether or not it was safe. They just didn't. They didn't have tests. They'll admit they didn't have it.
I mean, just shame on you, Joe. Being pregnant is an immune-compromised state. You are more vulnerable to infectious diseases while you are pregnant. Thus, your unborn child is more vulnerable to infectious diseases. So, vaccination during pregnancy not only protects the mother and the unborn child, but it also allows the mother to pass some immunity onto their child that protects them during their first months of life, where they are very vulnerable to infectious diseases like COVID. Most of the children under the age of 18 who have died of COVID in America were under 6 months of age. But screw it, some anti-vax politician who's running for president told Joe Rogan something else, so he's going to believe it because he can't think for himself. Anyway, that's it. Joe Rogan's dumb. Please don't get your medical or scientific information from him. Ever.